Chris, it's wonderful to be back in the studio with you again. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, truly.
And having to nerd with you for a while.
Geek out
around our most passionate and favorite subject.
Yes. Yeah. What is that? What is that, Michael? Ice cream?
But this is not such a favorite subject for you, right? You've just written a book about it.
Yeah.
So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we want to really dive into the discipline, right? And we want to talk in a bit of detail about, first of all, the environment in which we operate in. How does that environment look like? The complexities of that environment, right?
Yeah.
We want to also describe a little bit about when you're in that type of complex environment, what happens.
Yeah.
Right? We want to give some real kind of examples and what do you need to do and what's the consequences when you're in this environment, right?
Yeah.
And then we're going to also talk a little bit about, okay, so now that we understand the complexities of the environment, we now understand the consequences of those complexities. How do we propagate that you then operate in that environment? Right?
Yeah.
So those are kind of the things we wanted to really geek into today, right? Yeah?
For sure.
Cool. So you are, I think, one of the best at explaining this. Do you want to kick off by talking about the three, we call them change drivers, complexities.
Right. That our clients are having.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you want to kind of start off by just describing them and then we can dig into them a bit?
Yeah. So most of our clients have a few things in common. They target a finite market. And a finite market is, sounds very academic, but it's another word for an oligopolized traditional industry. So any industry that's been there for a while has consolidated. Bank and finance, grocery retail, oil and gas, transportation, all of those industries and a gazillion of others are oligopolized. They've been in a relatively static state for a while and then they consolidate. An example of a market that has been finite but is now infinite, almost, is energy tech. So not the utility side, that's still consolidated, but energy tech. So before you had a steady state around Hitachi, Siemens, GE, and a few other really big energy tech players. And then the green transition came, and boom, it's an explosion of vendors in. And just energy storage, there are 800, in even a subset under energy storage, 800 in the world, lithium-ion providers.
Just lithium-ion?
Just lithium-ion.
Nothing else?
Yeah, 800. So people think it's just Vercor, Northvolt, and maybe Panasonic. No, 800. And that's an example of a market that has been finite but now exploded into very fragmented and infinite. So having a finite target market is a key one. Another one is to have high complexity. So when your deal making involves several hierarchical levels, typically out of strategic reasons or the difference between budget and sign-off level, budget on one level, sign-off level, several floor up, or strategic importance, then you need several hierarchical levels, but also several functional areas, like logistics, procurement, finance, legal, blah, 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 blah. And then the third complexity is that your offering is relatively complex to the extent that a new salesperson can't come in and after 2 months do the entire sales process. And then the last one is that the complexity on the customer side is very high. The tricky KPIs, tricky organization, tricky processes, tricky surrounding systems that you are coming into. And those four complexities lead to what we call the rainmaker dependency, where we have seen zero exception to having a dependency on a small amount of people when you have those complexities.
And that impacts your scaling because you're so dependent on a few individuals. And, you know, in a scale up, it could be the founder or maybe one more person, right? And also because of the complexity that you just described, they also can't manage too many parallel deals
exactly.
in one go.
No, yeah.
So first of all, you can only manage a few deals. The sales cycles are extremely long, right? And you're dependent on a few people.
Yeah. And it's accelerated further when the customer has, which many of our customers have, a new category.
Which is the third.
Yeah, when you introduce a new category, imagine having a skyscraper that illustrates the buying organization, and just for the sake of illustration, you have owners, board, C-level, VPs, directors, managers, blah, 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 all the way down to Stefan on floor -3.
Famous Stefan.
Famous Stefan, yeah.
How did we end up calling him Stefan? Why?
No, it could have been Peter or Lisa or whatever. Yeah, it's just picking me. Yeah. So whoever listening, call Stefan, we're not talking about you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unless you are a Stefan.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there are Stefans that are Stefans.
There are Stefans, right?
Yeah. Okay. So when you sell a new category, so when you sell an established category, let's start there. You typically come in at the middle management level. There's someone that's been delegated a task to do.
For example, you're selling a CRM.
Yeah, CRM or yeah, exactly, or a plane ticket with an airline, or just raw steel.
Yeah.
I mean, no one is saying, no, for this car, we shouldn't use steel, we should use plastic in the frame. No, it's an established, I mean, there are movements in that as well, but an established category is purchased differently than a new category. An established category is purchased typically through an RFI, an RFP, and then it's a lot about differentiation. It's a differentiation game. Whereas a new category, you need to sell typically higher up, because people higher up are the only ones that can change an existing budget, for example. They can make changes required to all of a sudden swallow a new category. So you need to succeed by selling a new set of problems. You need to sell against the other competing categories and subcategories.
Exactly. So in a CRM, for example, I never need to convince senior management why they should invest in some type of CRM.
Yeah, no,
it's already mature. Everybody knows they need it, right? But if it's a new category, I actually have to convince some of the senior decision makers why they should either, instead of a current category that they're investing in new, or in parallel with the current category, invest in a new. And that's this kind of educational play around this.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And this is, we don't go deep into that in this session, but that's why we have this W model, where you need to navigate the W model as opposed to the last I in the W model with an established category. With a new category, you need to navigate the full W model. So with those complexities, to succeed in that environment, you need to, first of all, different to other environments, you need to succeed very high up with the
hierarchy.
Board, C-level, VPs. You need to succeed there, because it's not enough to succeed on the middle management. Secondly,
because it's very hard for them down here to set a new category.
No, they cannot. It doesn't mean that these are important as well. But if the top management is not involved, it won't happen.
Yeah, and doesn't understand the new category or why they should choose that category versus an existing category, then it's very hard.
The second thing you need to succeed with is consensus at scale. Because you have the complexity of the W, which automatically imply that you need so many more stakeholders on board. It's more like a political election. You need to win votes, and you need to do it at scale, because if you do it with just sales efforts, it takes forever. It takes just forever.
And often, can I just add something? Often, it's not just about influencing a specific leader in a meeting.
No.
Because that leader then often goes to a team of people underneath them, a team of people in another function underneath them, and say, look, here is a new, they don't say new category, but here is a new offering that we haven't seen before.
Right.
Can you please evaluate against our existing way of working or existing category? And then all of a sudden you have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people who you haven't influenced underneath the person you've talked to that's now needing to make a decision on something they know nothing about, right?
Yeah. A very unscientific statement is like selling an established category needs X amount of people internally. A new category, maybe 10x, at least 5 to 10x. This is not scientifically based, but just based on experience. The third thing you need to succeed with is you need to accelerate the normalization of your category. So in technology adoption, you have what's called the S curve. You have very little adoption early, and then it starts to accelerate, and then it flattens out. You can also be described as the bell curve, where you have early adopters and an early majority, etc. So to accelerate the S curve, you need to create normalization. So the audience need to, as fast as possible, think that this new category is common sense. And they need to think that it's more established than it is. So you kind of, if you can accelerate that by 1-2 years, first of all, and if you are one of the front runners, the whole category benefit, but also you. So then you can really take a pole position, and you can reach completely different revenues years in advance. So the key word is normalization.
Yeah, and what you're referring to is the normalization of the category. Is that you need to attract the majority of the market to buy. And they are pragmatic in their way of buying.
They are.
So they don't want to be first, the majority. They don't want to be first, right? But they don't want to be last, right?
So FOMO is very effective.
FOMO is effective. So the typical thing is, like, we have this great category, this great solution. They go, that's great. Is anybody else using it? No. Well, call me when the rest are. But then when they start to see people in their vertical or industry are starting to adopt this, then they go, we can't miss out, right? And that's what you want to...
Exactly. And if you at the same time, so you create normalization around the category, a feeling that, oh shit, everyone is doing this, we're left out. And at the same time, you're positioning your brand connected to it. Then it's like you're vaccinating the audience, so that when competitors are coming in with the same pitch, they will hear every day, oh, so how do you compare with X?
Yeah. Like, yeah. Exactly. Good. So one of the things that I think we see a lot and we observe a lot is when you have this environment that you just talked about, especially the rainmaker dependency with the 4 complexities you described and the building a new category. One of the reasons why, apart from the fact that there are a few people that can actually do the rainmaking or do the orchestration, and it doesn't have to be a salesperson, it could be
CTO
or CPO, etc. Is that one, you're dependent on a few, right? But one of the things that we realize is that when you finally get a meeting with a senior stakeholder, there is a massive moment of truth. Because if the person in that meeting cannot sell the category and does what we observe salespeople do, they're much more comfortable talking about the product and the demo and things like this.
It's a comfort zone.
It's a comfort zone. But if they can't lift the discussion higher up in what we call the decision tree, so what are the big challenges and problems that they're wrestling with? And why should they start making decisions around this new category versus or parallel with the current one? If they're not comfortable in that dialogue, that meeting dies.
Right.
And if that meeting dies...
Can I double click on that?
Yes, please.
So to make a concrete image in your head, in a market where you have an established category and you can run a very V-shaped funnel, you put junior people in the front. They do the cold calling, they do the social selling, they fish up the meetings, have a qualifying meeting, and then you pull you in. That's fine in an infinite market with a mature category. In a finite market with an immature category, you need to swap the roles. So you need to put the senior people in the front, because if you mess up the first meeting, there is no second meeting. And you can instead have the juniors as your sidekicks. They're offloading the rainmakers. So you still use a team play, but the senior person leads. And we've seen so many cases where I even had a CEO in a fintech company the other day. They just raised their A round, and he started crying in the meeting where he said, well, what I haven't told the investors is that I have to be in all the important meetings. If I'm not there, it stops. I don't know what to do about it. And this is they're not working with us yet. But he's like, I have this sales force, and I've made the investor believe that we are running this as an equal team and that they pull their load. But in reality, they're not. It's dependent on me. It doesn't have to be one person. It can be 2, 3, 4 people, but it's typically not more than that.
But maybe triple click on that. You double clicked and I'm triple clicking on it. So, because this is really important. So, when
how many clicks can you have?
So, when you have this scenario, the complexities that you described, and you're building you're building a new category, and you finally get the meeting with a senior person, and the rainmaker who you're dependent on is not in the meeting. You're sending in a more junior person who can't handle the category discussion and influence at category level. You don't get, not only do you not get a second chance, but you may have burned that for 5-6 years.
They make up their mind and shut the door.
And you created a fantastic KPI. And why don't you just kind of talk a little about the KPI? Yeah. What do we call that KPI, and what's the detrimental impact if that KPI is high in a finite market? Maybe you just...
So what companies have done historically is that they measure both number of meetings, they measure progression in the pipeline, etc. But if you only measure the positive KPIs, it can look favorable. To
because you're getting many meetings, you get many leads.
It's a short time push. You're pushing in a telemarketing firm, or you're hiring a few SDRs, and all of a sudden the meeting rate goes up.
Can I just one parenthesis before you continue? Sorry. So, because I hear a lot, I have this junior person getting me 1 or 2 meetings a week. Then my question is, but how many meetings, how many calls are they burning to get those 2 meetings?
Exactly.
Sorry, anyway.
No, but that's the key. Like, let's say you get, 5 new meetings per week. You have to ask a new question based on how many
you're not
calls.
Getting.
Not how many attempts, but when you reach a person, how many turn you down.
Exactly.
If you get 5 meetings and you have had 35, 40 turning you down, you have actually short, midterm and burned those 35, 40. Because most people are very consequent. If they've said no, and you then reach out to them the next week, they'll go, Bora, what was it that you didn't understand?
Exactly.
And then first of all, your status is down the drain. And you have an uphill road to climb, but you might not even get in for another year. Exactly. And if you have a finite market where 5, 10, 50, 100 companies represent 80% of the volumes in that market, it's very expensive to burn those bridges. Then it's better to build the momentum, etc.
And you call it the BBR.
Yeah, BBR, burning bridges rate. So you need to monitor not just, how many meetings did we get, but also how many bridges did we burn.
Exactly.
So the burning bridges rate, BBR.
Massive consequence that many companies don't fully quite register and understand. And they're actually burning these bridges and effectively destroying their finite market. Which is horrendous. Like it's a train wreck. Right? So, but that also brings us to another interesting principle, which is we talk a lot about.
I think just to quadruple click on. Just the last comment. So I think not most, but many sales leaders that have built their success in an established category with an infinite market think that they can replicate those models into a finite market with an unproven category. But those two games are so different.
Let's talk about this. This is really important.
So they're so different that this model will not work. Because here you can have a gazillion of SDRs and you're building a wide funnel.
Generating leads.
You're doing the numbers game. But you have the first qualification meeting with a relatively junior person and then bring in the senior. And that model is fine.
When the category is known.
There's a known category and it's a very broad market. So let's say I would work with sales at Salesforce or someone like that. I mean, they basically sell to anyone. And it's CRM, like you said, CRM is not quite. I mean, CRM.
Everybody thinks they.
So it's more like which CRM. It's not should we have a CRM. It's which CRM. Whereas in
and even more complex if your brand is unknown.
If
you add that complexity.
Finite market, new category, unknown brand, good luck, Chuck. You cannot apply the same models. But I think the
versus a strong category in a mature market, which is
and a strong brand. So those two games are very different. But I think the reason why both many sales leaders and many sales people are failing when making the move from a proven category and proven brand into an unproven category and unproven brand, because here the game is different.
And here Jonas, our CEO, has kind of really framed the next principle, which ties to this really, really well. You know, he talks a lot about the Pareto rule and the opportunity cost, because we continue to see, based on what you just explained, right? There's this belief that if I have the rainmaker, who is, I'm just making this up, can manage 20, 25 accounts and is making progress, and making progress on some of these accounts. The logic then says, especially in the infinite game that you talked about, well, if I hire another 5 salespeople, that means I'll be able to 5x that, right? Now, in the infinite game, that logic may make sense.
It's not even making sense
there, I agree.
But yeah,
there is
theoretically,
something. Yes. But when you do that in this scenario, it's an absolute train wreck, right? Because the opportunity cost of doing that is insane. Because if these 5 people are burning bridge after bridge after bridge after bridge, that the rainmaker, if they had been in that meeting or contacted that client, would have actually got 1 or 2 of these deals to progress and come and go. That's, in a finite environment, is horrendous. So one of the things that we try and talk a lot about is understanding the Pareto rule. So focus on your most important rainmakers, and be careful. Don't go and hire straight away a lot of salespeople that are going to go and burn this bridge, right? Because that's going to be more costly than you think. And based on this, can you also now, tied to this, explain the sales model A and B that you talked about? Because that's connected to this scenario.
2 different scaling models. But just before I do that, I think I mentioned sales leaders and salespeople. There is a scenario where we very easily get understood. It's where the majority of the board has built new categories, or the founding CEO, etc., have also built new categories. They completely get it. They're like, we understand. Whereas I have a case right now where I think we won't get the deal. The CEO is fully on board, but the board all are coming from companies with proven categories, and they are like,
maybe strong brands.
Yeah, stronger brands and proven categories. So they're there mostly because they understand the tech domain. But the go-to-market that they have been playing in is different than a finite new category.
Rules are very different.
They're very different rules. Anyway, so there are 2 scaling models that we see, and if you have the complexities that we talk about and the new category and the finite market, there are two scaling models. The first one is the traditional one, which has I have seen 0 examples of this working, but it's still being deployed again and again. Is where you have the first few deals are made by the founder team, potentially another person as well that is not a founder, and then you go, cool. Now we have proven the case. We have the first 1 to 5, 10, whatever deals. Now we just need to duplicate ourselves with the sales force, and the keyword here is duplicate. And this model fails. So I meet so many, especially first-time founders. The serial ones, they get it. They're like, we know this won't work, so they're easier. But the first-time entrepreneurs are when I say to them, this model will fail, I think they think I'm arrogant. But I say to them as well, if you're humble enough, we will speak in a year. Because this will fail. You've recruited 10 salespeople now. You will have fired 9 of them. 1 might be successful, and it has costed you several million dollars, and
not just the opportunity. Not just the opportunity
cost
of paying for the salespeople, but the opportunity cost of the scaling.
The timing
and the burning of the bridges with the client.
Exactly. So that traditional scaling model, and it's even where it's accelerated. If this company on top of it want to go into a few new countries, what they do, which is an extra bad idea. Not only do they try to duplicate themselves with salespeople in their own office, they recruit local teams in a few different countries. And the consequence here is, and people listening to this will recognize this, they're like, so even people in the same office will go, Bora, 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 the customer is asking difficult questions. Here's the email, what should I answer? Or can you come with me to the next meeting? It starts to be super complicated. So actually these sales hired guns are bogging down the rainmakers to the extent that not only will they not increase the revenue, they will decrease the capacity of the rainmaker. So
because they can make less meetings.
Yeah, exactly. So and in the satellite office example, it's even worse because not only do you have hired guns, they're not even sitting near you. So they're sitting there in Germany, US, whatever. They're like, Bora, I have this meeting. Can you fly down to Frankfurt or can you come over to Washington? So anyway, the second scaling model, which is the one we propagate.
So the first one is you have just to be clear, you have the founder, and then when you founders, and then when you realize
maybe one more person.
Yeah, now we're getting some traction. You go directly into hiring more salespeople.
Yeah,
that's model number A.
Duplicate yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
What we're saying is that, and it works really well. We're saying, no, don't duplicate yourselves. Scale yourselves. That's the keyword. So duplicate versus scale. So here, instead, what you should do, you do the first few deals on bare force, conviction, like in the first model. But then instead of duplicating yourself, you're scaling yourself. So the key in the second model is you still do the first few deals with the founding team, potentially a new member that wasn't a founder, and then you want to scale the key people, not duplicate them, because the duplication doesn't work. You want to scale them. And the two key things to do is, one, you can bring in new people, but they are not there to be duplicating you. They're there to scale you. So they would do the pre-work, so kind of a management consultant with X amount of year of experience, kind of on the way up in the career, smart people, but they can see a thrill in working with the founder team. So they are preparing the meetings, they're taking notes in the meetings, they're concluding the meetings, showing it to have I concluded correct, yes, and then they take care of follow-ups, so you can come into the next meeting again, gloves on, things like that. So take things off of the rainmakers. The second key word is to scale the rainmakers with hyper-targeted media and social selling. So you need to drive both the awareness, confidence, and trust with your finite market at scale, but you also need to drive the consensus at scale within this organization. So
consensus influencing.
Yeah, and since it's a new category, you need to influence more people. So it's more like political votes. It's a political election, and that's so hard to do with just manpower. So you scale the rainmakers with media. And then you can take the leap from the first few deals up to 50, 100 clients even with that model. And we are using this. I do most of that. We'll put less time on it, but we're not, you and I combined, we're not even a full-time employee on sales. So, and we're scaling pretty fast. We're eating our own.
But you had a final piece as well, which is the playbook. So
once you have scaled the founding team, maybe one more person, etc., with media and people offloading those, then you can create a playbook, and then you can recruit more salespeople. But now you're at an
established media machinery and an established playbook,
but also an established customer base. So you're now at a point where you have quite a heavy list of logos. The category, your brand, your product, etc., are normalized, because both with the real traction and with the media traction, we've built such a strong position in the market. Then we can actually have slightly inferior non-magicians doing the sales. But the thing that companies tend to do, especially if they have a board that haven't been building new categories in a finite market, etc., they want to duplicate the sales model that works for an established market. And you can fast track this, because eventually you come into an established, you can accelerate the motion into an established market with the rainmakers and the whole media play. And then you can use people that are not magicians.
And I just want to kind of maybe finish up this section with one more area. Again, I love the way how how you anchor names around concepts. You're probably one of the best in the world at it. But
I wouldn't say that. But it's important to for the brain to remember things. It's important to name things.
Actually, I came up with this. It's called the paradox. Just kidding. It was Chris. Because and you can add some more meat. But the paradox is really about
the finite market paradox.
The finite market paradox, because you don't want STRs that are attacking the finite accounts and prospects, calling them, emailing them, forcing a decision when the market doesn't know the category, doesn't know the salesperson, doesn't know the message, doesn't know anything. Yeah. Because there's a high likelihood, much higher likelihood, even if you get 2 leads, you've burned 15, 20.
So and for the wrong reasons.
For the wrong reasons. So the paradox is deferring the decision, right?
Yeah.
Deferring the decision by using what you just talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. So the finite market paradox says you make more deals and faster by delaying decisions, which is counterintuitive, hence the word paradox. So when you come with a new category in a finite market and your brand isn't proven, et cetera, you want to ask the question late. And here, not asking for the deal, but asking for any kind of decision. And a meeting request is asking for a decision. Like you said, if we do a cold call or cold email or cold in-mail, we're actually forcing the client to say yes or no before they know the category, your brand, your solution, and you personally. Yeah. Then they will very, like you said,
and the brain computes quickly. What is this person talking about? And they don't know the category, they don't know what they're talking about. I'll click.
I mean, both you and I mean, we're still a relatively small company. We've been approached by this every day by email, phone calls, email. And we've never heard about the company. We've never heard about the category, or we've heard about the category, but and then we just go no. Whereas if it's a category is known, a brand that is known, and we even know that person. Oh, this person. I've seen him or her a lot. They don't know why. I've even seen him or her on my LinkedIn account, and we reach out for a meeting. Then the answer is very likely yes, because all of a sudden it's someone that you should know. You your brain says, I know this person. I think I know their category. I'm already educated about it. Of course, we should meet.
I'll give you one interesting example, and this happens all the time because we're using our own machinery, we're eating our own dog food. But I had an SMS about 2-3 weeks ago from a CEO of a company who said something like, "I'm in the domain you guys talk about, and we're struggling, and I would like to meet you." So I called him up and I talked to him and I said, "How did you know about me?" And he first said, "Well, actually, the book is outside of my office."
Right.
And then I said, "Okay, but anything else?" "Yes, I've been following you. I've been seeing your ads. I've been following you on LinkedIn. I've seen your videos. I've never met the guy. I didn't even know who he is, right? But back to your point around now, it's not like everybody always calls you. That's not the point. But the point is that by using that machinery and positioning your category, the problem you're solving, and directionally how you're solving that problem, by all these different touch points in the ecosystem, makes them warmer. So when you defer the decision and it's actually time to talk, they're not coming to you going, "I don't know who you are, I don't know your category, go away.
Exactly.
I don't know your company." Now it's like, these guys seem to be onto something. I want to at least talk to them.
And the follow-on effect is if when that person turns around internally, says, "So I met Bora from Megadeals. I'd like us to meet them with a bigger group." He or she is not meeting a cold. He or she is not facing a cold. He or she is hearing, Megadeals. I know a lot about them. They seem to be really good. And I personally even know Bora, which they typically say is not necessarily true, but they feel they know you. And then the follow-up meeting is very easy. There's another consequence which is really cool. So if you create a celebrity status around not just the company, but around the key people, what happens on the customer side is that more senior stakeholders want to meet you because they're like, "Oh yeah, that person I know about." 3 things we need to achieve: senior stakeholder engagement, consensus at scale, and normalization of the category. So and the brand. So all of a sudden, thanks to a stronger company brand, category, and personal brand, the senior stakeholders want to engage with you.
Yeah.
Because they're like, yeah, okay, they feel VIP'd to get to meet you. Yeah.
So Chris, we've been geeking around the three complexities that these type of companies have.
Yeah.
Right. The finite market, the rainmaker dependency, and building a new category.
Yeah.
We've spent a lot of time discussing what that looks like, the problems that they encounter, what not to do, and how
scaling models.
To scaling models and so on. Maybe it's time now to shift to, okay, so what should we do in this environment?
Right.
And when you have these complexities,
Yeah.
right? And I think before we start to talk about what we should do and how what we've built our whole company on to help companies that have these complexities, I think it would be useful. I always find it so inspiring to kind of take a step back and listen to how you got here, because you've been in this domain all your life.
Right.
And you've all your life, being as extremely analytical as you are, you've started to depict where you see that you've always seen that companies that have these three complexities over and over again fall into the same problem and the same trap.
Right.
And you've also worked with some of the best mega dealers on the planet. Yeah. In fact, you've deep interviewed them for the book.
So worked with many
of them. So a combination of immense experience in seeing this and working with some of these kind of Navy SEALs within this arena, you've kind of landed in where we are today. Yeah. I think it'd be interesting for you to share that journey before we talk about how should we operate when you have these three complexities.
Right. Well, it all started by me selling software at an early age into big companies, and I made the scaling mistake of recruiting salespeople and had to fire all of them, and took one as my sidekick, and I've done all of that, and that actually in my first company led to that. Plus, I was not a good CEO. Led to us bankrupting, so failed the company. Luckily, we could restart it, and then it became very successful. But we did fail the first attempt, and I lost a ton of money, and shareholders lost money, etc.
Yeah. Painful way of learning.
Yes. But then also invented the first product, not the first thing in the account-based marketing world, because that started actually earlier in the consulting space. But we built the first account-based marketing product in the world, 2007, a few months before Demandbase and a few others. So I did that 10 years. That was a VIP ticket into some of the largest deals in the world, because we were specialized around really large deals. A few other ABM players were more like other kind of deals, but we were really into the large deals. And then I met, as you said, some of these serial mega dealers.
Working with some of the top
over 100
companies of the
over
world.
100 Fortune 500 companies all around the world, but also a few hundred more like medium-sized.
And you were in the trenches when they were doing, so the SAPs of the world, the Ericssons of the world were doing these multi-million-dollar deals. You were with them in the trenches in the war room, right?
Yeah, exactly. So most of the companies we worked with, you've heard about. But the beauty was that we got engaged with the top of the pyramid. So they're absolute superstars. So they're rainmakers because they exist also in big companies. And that was super inspiring. And in that environment, I saw so many things that are not talked about in the sales literature nor the marketing literature. So led to us doing a book about it, deep interview at about 65 of these serial mega dealers. Bit like good to great to see what do they do differently compared to average Joe. That led to the book, and us and a few others started a consulting company around it. That was very successful. It grew very fast, but first we started off working with really big companies, but we realized two things. The consulting model, the first thing we realized was that the thing we preached was too complex. So companies were breaking their backs because I think you need to do all of those, but we introduced them too fast. So we stressed the clients to death. So we had to go back to the drawing board. So we both shifted from working with seriously large companies into startups and scale-ups, because I think it has to do with personality as well. It's quite fun to be able to do quick changes. To turn a Fortune 500 company around takes forever. It's good consulting fees, but so we went down. We took everything we've learned. So both from my previous world, yours and others, the research, everything we did in the consulting, we shrunk it down. How can we make this comprehensible, actionable, and at a price point that works for small and medium-sized companies? And I think we succeeded with that, and that made us launch a more product-based offering, but with a human layer on top. That has grown like crazy since we launched it a year ago. So from 100K euro ARR to 2.5 million euro ARR, and not even so. Us together combined, maybe 1.5 sales day per week or something. Now we've increased it slightly, but we're far from having to recruit salespeople. We're rather growing more massively with taking things off of us and adding even more media machinery in our own play. But so when we also moved away from implementing the whole thing into making it actionable and at a price point that is that works even for companies with 5 employees. 5 to 100. I mean, we have others, but 5 to 100 employees are a sweet spot for us. And the price point is like 1.5, and 2 salaries, and not very senior salaries. So we made it possible for companies, and this is I'm very proud of, I think you are as well, for smaller companies to get a more sophisticated machinery than what IBM and others have, and for a price point that they can totally afford. Because you can, the things we do, you can do in the IBMs of the world, but then you have a whole team doing it, you have 6, 7 platforms, you have to shuffle data between all sorts of platforms.
And cost, it's a huge cost.
It's a huge cost, so you're looking at easily 1 to 1.5, 2 million euros per year doing that. If you do all of it yourself, you buy the platforms, you do all the work yourself. It's very, very expensive. We have shrunk it down, much thanks to building a meta software, so software on top of other platforms, making it possible for us to execute it very, very effectively.
And report.
Yeah, so both how to execute it and how to report on it. So we're grabbing data from a lot of platforms, making it understandable for a very high-level team in our client organization. And that you cannot get elsewhere, actually. So and also not only, so we combined how to do sales, hyper-targeted media, social selling, but also with the fourth component of understanding the client. We've gotten all those 4 to work combined in an orchestration. That's why we call this new category Deal Orchestration Enablement.
Exactly.
Which is kind of the next level after account-based marketing. And I think I can credibly say that because I started the world's first
You've been
product.
In the space
I've been in it for 10 years, and I started the world's first product company in the account-based marketing space. But what account-based marketing failed at was you hear it in the word account-based marketing. So it was sitting in the marketing function, and it didn't involve sales, didn't involve social selling. So you need to be able to orchestrate those. And that's something we have cracked. And not only that, what you often see is that when companies doing it in-house, to influence the right amount of people, you need to combine so many words. You need to combine so many worlds. Some people hang out on LinkedIn. Some people read more newspapers. Some people are more on Instagram or Facebook. Some are hanging out on YouTube. We're combining all those media worlds in one, with one reporting, one execution. I've never seen that. And since we can do it at a price point, including the work, I think that's, apart from we having a sophisticated machinery that we're using ourselves, the actual offering is very, very, very competitive.
And as you say, we orchestrate that machinery, but the key thing you're also talking about, apart from combining the platforms and the reporting is doing it in tandem with the orchestration of the salesperson.
Exactly. Yeah,
that's so key, right? Because that's where a lot of these, a lot of the companies and bureaus fail, right? It's like running a campaign here and a campaign there. That's completely in silos from the organization.
So since we're targeting more scale-ups, what they typically end up doing if they try to do it in-house, because it's so complex to execute 5 media platforms, other data platforms and all that, you drown in marketing administration. So they fall back on, but we're doing some kind of ABM style on LinkedIn. But the problem is that a lot of our clients, at least, if you look at the whole stakeholder map in their clients, the majority are not hanging out frequently on LinkedIn. So you can't rely on LinkedIn.
Only on LinkedIn,
No, I mean, they appear now and then on LinkedIn, and you need to mix it with Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, news site like Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Swedish newspapers, Spanish newspapers. You need to mix all of that, but with hyper-targeting.
And you also need to, as soon as you start to add, as you say, a number of platforms, a number of techniques, now it starts to get complex because it's, one, it involves a media budget, and two, you also need to know when do I use what.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
no, it's complex.
It's very complex.
We even had in the beginning, we had growth issues ourselves when, even though our team was sitting here with us, we had a glitches between what they should do and what they did. So now it's well oiled, but in the beginning we were, even though, especially myself, know this in and out, we had some issues doing it even for the clients.
And then you have an additional complexity which we hear from our clients around GDPR. So you also need to know, how do I handle and manage the whole GDPR aspect of doing these type of things.
Yeah, when using so many things.
So many things, and there's some very clear rules around GDPR that you need to follow. So obviously, kind of that's where our expertise around.
And it's so much more than just pressing the buttons.
Chris, we can geek on this for another couple of hours. Days, marathon, right? But I think we can do another session, but let's kind of round it off. I think the way I would leave it is, apart from the fact that it's so exciting how we've cracked deal orchestration enablement for companies that have these 3 complexities, but we've also put over a layer of what we call high impact management, which is what our wonderful CEO Jonas brings to the show. And this is really around how we then deploy the deal orchestration enablement, right? And it's very targeted in a number of what we call high impact programs. And we use what we call impact layers. Now, we don't have time to go into that today, but to leave a bit of a cliffhanger.
Oh, that's equally exciting.
It's how do you use the machinery that we've created to make sure that you drive maximum impact
on the most important goals for the company.
So both on the pipeline that you're working on now, how do you generate revenue fast? Number 2, the existing accounts that you want to grow, right? And how do you generate revenue and impact fast? And then you have the big group of prospects in what we call our target segment, where you want to build a brand positioning and your category dominance over time, right? How do you do that? And even a 4th program where many of the clients that we operate with are scale-ups, and they're also looking to continue to raise more capital. How do you target and also position yourself?
Prepare investors for the next round.
So to finish this,
we'll cover those next time.
So it's taking the kind of the offering that we've created in companies that have these 3 complexities, but overlaying it with a very high impact kind of delivery model to help drive both short-term revenue but also long-term capacity.
Super.
So that's for the next episode.
Thank you.
Always.